Thanks for joining us live with Miami's Community News. We have two guests today, Chef Michael Morris. Thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
And your restaurant is Draft SZN.
Correct.
The 95th and US 1 in the beautiful village of Pinecrest. And then from near Knoxville, Tennessee, that is, we have John Fica.
Fica. I'm a Florida boy. I just happen to be out of state today.
Okay. And with hands-on education, and you're near Knoxville, Tennessee. So let's first talk about our local chef down here. So tell us about your restaurant and why John is here today.
Well, my restaurant is located at 9559 South Dixie Highway, and it's a new venture. I signed the lease actually October 1st of last year, and we've been open now for almost 2 months. So it took a long time and a lot of work to put it together, and it took a lot of hurdles to be jumped and a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot. But we got there, we got open, and that was the big push. Now we need more people to know that we're there and to come and try us out and see what we can do.
So what type of food and what's the ambiance like there?
It's a sports bar and grill. So we've got lots of we have 12 65-inch TVs. We have one 10-foot projector TV. There's wood on the walls, paneling.
So here's what I don't get. I go to some place and I go to sit down to watch a football game, like in your place. How long are people there drinking beer? Or do they just...
For the whole game.
For the whole game?
Yeah.
They're there for hours.
They're there for a few hours, yeah. So
wow.
They often pace themselves. They might get an appetizer in the first quarter, and they might have an entree in the third quarter, and then have, the beers in between.
Okay, what we try to do is do everything in the first quarter. Everything. The whole thing.
Well, then you go to sleep.
So we have John that has joined us. Tell us about hands-on education.
Well, Mike, this is it's a state-funded program, and we train people with disabilities to work in the hotel and restaurant industry. And my relationship with Chef Morris goes back to day one. We started on June 21st, 1998. And he was the executive sous chef at the Grand Hyatt Tampa Bay in Tampa. And we do this at Hyatt hotels all over the country. But he was there on day one. And when we were just learning how to fuse this model together, and we were turning students with learning disabilities and other types of disabilities into prep cooks. And he not only helped train them, but he hired a bunch of them. And then he transferred to Key West, and then to Coral Gables, then to the Hyatt Regency Miami. And every time he went somewhere, he would say, "When are we going to start a class? I want to start it now. I'm ready." And so he's trained a lot of students, and he's hired a bunch of them. He's got a heart of gold, and he's got a lot of patience for people that they may need extra time to ramp up. And so when I heard that he was opening draft season, I said, "Man, that's so cool, because finally we're going to have a sports bar that has really, really good food." Most of the time, you think of hot wings or maybe a burger or whatever. But the people that come into draft season they're gonna get some burgers and some wings and stuff, but they're gonna get it in a way that they would experience it in a 4-star hotel or resort. And because he doesn't do anything halfway, he's a true chef by every sense of the word. But the reason that I wanted to join you is to tell your viewers and the community that he's also an awesome human being. And he cares about the community, and he is already asking me, "Do you have any students who could work here and train here?" So I will not be surprised in the next year or so if he doesn't have some employees who have learning disabilities or who might be deaf, and working in and out of the kitchen and the restaurant and the front of the house side as well. So I'm just happy to be here and brag on a chef that I've worked with for 24 years.
John, so often in life, the person that's doing the hard work, they do it because they love that. and they don't get the recognition. And they don't do it for the recognition. They do it because it's the right thing for them to do. So I'm glad that you spoke up on for the chef to be able to do that, because I know there's lots of people out there doing it, but I don't get an opportunity very often to meet somebody that cares enough to go through the trials and tribulations that it is to deal with people with some disability. So my hat's off to you and for the classes that you offer. So let's talk about on the classes. You wind up with students that live nearby.
Usually they're local. Sometimes they're not, and sometimes they have to stay in a hotel, which wouldn't be in the same hotel that I was working in at the time. So that they needed to get up in the morning, get themselves to work on time. All of that counts. All of that counts as part of the training. That they're independent enough to get up, get themselves dressed, get to work on time, be ready when they get to work, and sometimes that can be tough for them too.
Yeah, so for the gentlemen and the ladies that do this across the world, my hats off, because I get impatient too frequently. All right, so I don't know how you do it, but congratulations on doing that. So let's again talk about the restaurant. What the type of experience might be for somebody that walks into your restaurant.
Well, like John said, we do have the wings. We do have which are incredible wings, and we do have a burger, which is a special blend of short rib, brisket, and chuck. So we picked that burger because the amount of fat in it is just enough to keep it juicy and not to make it fatty. And the flavor from the brisket and the flavor from the short ribs comes to the surface. I mean, you taste those cuts of meat have far richer flavor than just chuck.
And Chef, how did you wind up selecting that location first of all in Pinecrest, and second that location?
The location, I was looking for a second generation restaurant. I looked at quite a few. I looked at a Mexican restaurant. I looked at a seafood restaurant. I looked at which are pretty blank canvases when you walk in. Same as when I found this location. It was a pretty blank canvas, but it had a really great bar that I didn't have to replace, and it had a little character to it as well that I thought would be nice to keep. It used to be Little Hooley's, and
so you're in that corner.
I'm in that corner.
Oh, that's a nice spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before you go on, can you, Julian, could you put up his website and a phone number up there? So Little Hooley's over there in the corner. All right, pretty nice position over there.
Right.
There were lots of stuff going on there for many years.
Yes, but now we have a new concept. Not a dingy bar. We're not I don't want to say dingy bar, but I want to say like a dive bar, right? We want to be more upscale, a little bit more upscale, food forward, family friendly dining.
Okay. And where are you, John?
Yes.
Okay. So have you been doing restaurants as well over in your career?
Yeah, I grew up. I'm a cook by trade, and I cooked my way through the University of South Florida and became a special ed teacher. And that's how all this got started. One summer in 1998, I got together with Chef and the general manager of the hotel and said, we need an alternative way to get people into this industry, especially if they can't go to college. And what a lot of people don't realize, because they watch too many food channels, as they always glamorize our industry. And, they make it sound like if you go spend $40,000, $60,000 at a culinary school, you're going to be a chef tomorrow. And that's not the truth. And many of the sous chefs, and I would go so far as to say over half of the sous chefs, which means you're a manager under the chef. The word sous means under. And most of them never went to culinary school. They started out in the dish room and doing prep, and the chef took them under their wing, and they become great lead cooks and supervisors. And some have a desire to go further. And it's just a great industry for somebody that either can't go to college or they want to get. I always say college is college, but work is school, and in your industry, in our industry, and Chef Morris is such a humble guy. If I wasn't here, he wouldn't be bragging about our relationship. He would just be talking about his restaurant. But one of the students that he helped train, it has no high school diploma, and he's now an executive chef at a Sheraton on Clearwater Beach.
You bring up a really important thing. Sometimes just showing up and being in that environment, all right, you wind up getting in a position that by default that somebody didn't show up that day. Here, you sit at the front desk. And we have plenty of examples of that here. And we know that across the country, radio stations, it's a common thing, all right, which is, hey, our guy didn't come in. You've been listening for a long time. Sit down and go for it, right? So, so I hear you loud and clear. So for people that are thinking about going to chef school, maybe they should be working in a restaurant for a while and see what it's really like, the hard work that's involved there and all that sweat cleaning those dishes for a long time. So tell us how you wound up getting into the restaurant arena.
From my transition from the hotels to the restaurants?
No, before that.
Before that? Oh, how I started?
Yes.
I actually started
when you were 11.
I started when I was 15.
That's good.
Close. And I washed dishes at a summer camp in Canada. I'm from Canada originally, and I actually was the pot washer the first summer there, and I was crawling into some giant pots and scraping the bottom of them, and it was dirty work and hard work.
And crawling into some.
What
does that mean, John? When he says that, does he mean you jumped into the pot?
Well, because they're so big, you almost have to put your whole body in to get to the bottom.
Big pots, and you got to get down to the bottom with the scraper and get what they burnt on it off. So
owners of restaurants need to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. The minimum, so you know what it's like. So when you're telling the guy you need to do that, and this is how you can do it.
Absolutely. And so I started out washing pots. The second summer I went back. I went back to be a dishwasher, pot washer, whichever that was available, and started out the first week or so, and somebody didn't show up, so I became the breakfast cook. So
did you know how to do anything before that?
No, I didn't know how to cook before that. No.
My grandson, he's 8. See, Benjamin, you could do it too.
But you get thrown into the job and you learn how to flip 300 eggs in an hour.
And that's about life itself.
Right.
You got to show up. You got to be there. You got to be willing. You got to be open to that possibility.
Right.
And to wait for your opportunity.
So after the summer camps and finishing high school, I went to culinary school in Barrie, Ontario, and did my culinary degree. And when I got out of there, I went to England and went to work at the Savoy in London, which is one of those hotels that has big place in history in England. So I did 2 years of work there, and that's where I claim that I learned how to cook.
So how did you move from being a cook to a chef? What is that transition? And the difference is what?
It's your knowledge and your abilities. Showing up is important, and you might get a position by showing up, but at some point you have to perform as well.
So one of the things that I've seen is the distinguishing remark of calling people a chef. All right, I see that across the board. That's their name, like coach. All right,
right.
All right. So when did all that start? Where the workers, if you will, are recognizing the position of that?
Well, actually, it started at the Savoy London, as a matter of fact, with a great chef named Escoffier. Escoffier was one of the first modern chefs who was one of the first chefs to actually make a plated menu. He was one of the first chefs to actually write down recipes. He worked with Caesar Ritz at the Savoy London before the two of them left there and went to Paris to open the Ritz in Paris. So there's a lot of history in that building where I did my training.
I'm sorry, Julian, could you on the scroll put his website or his phone number? So, John, so here we are, a young person, 18 years old, is thinking about uh, the profession of becoming a chef, and they get involved with it. How do they? Where do they start, and what type of restaurant should they go to wind up? So in 5 years or 10 years from there, they can be in a place where they feel really proud of their accomplishments.
Well, it almost doesn't matter where you start as long as you can, like Chef said, show up and work hard. Many of our students, they'll even ask me, "Are you a chef?" And I will tell them, "No." Too many people claim to be a chef, and they're really what we call big fish in little ponds. They run a small restaurant, and they're the head cook, but they'll start calling themselves chefs because it sounds cooler and better and more professional. But what I tell them is that a true chef can not only work in any department, because if in one of Chef's former hotels, he might be in the pastry department helping the pastry chef one day, and he might be on the line expediting food or cooking food in a fast-paced restaurant, and he might be in garde manger doing cold food prep, or he might be in banquets pumping out hot meals for 200 people, 300 people, 800 people. And the magic is not that they can serve 1,000 people. Chef and I can prep for 1,000 people, just he and I, over a course of a few days, but we'll need hands to organize it all, and to plate it up, and for the timing to be right, for it coming out of a hot oven and it's not even completely done, and it goes on a hot place and a hot lid and a hot box, and it's still cooking on the way, and all that timing. That's what a true chef is all about, that they can coordinate it like an orchestra conductor. And then also another definition is somebody that can make something from nothing. I could hand Chef Morris 5 ingredients and he could make something and it's going to taste good. And then I could hand him the same 5 ingredients back and he could do something almost totally different. And that is a true chef, somebody that's trained and cross-trained to work in any kitchen environment, but also that can create food from just raw ingredients.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because when I look at it from an organizational point, putting aside the cooking of it, but to get it to the customers, right? All about the same time, all about the same temperature. It's an amazing process. And thinking, there are 100 people in this restaurant. How are they doing that? So it really says it's a tribute to the minds and the abilities of the people that are from the chef all the way through to be able to organize that. So did you learn that, or did you know that when you went in, as far as just know how to do that?
You're never born with it. So yeah, you had to learn it. And I attribute that to some of the great chefs that I worked with. I worked with Albert Schnell in Canada, and I worked with Hans Hickel in Tampa. Both really good chefs, really great chefs that knew all of that. Obviously, they were taught by a chef as well. But to orchestrate just one event is easy. But when you have in a hotel where you may have 25 events over the next 3 days, it's a lot of organization.
So what's it like, John, when you're sitting next to the chef and it's organized chaos? What's that like to keep your head straight so you don't lose it? What do you do?
Well, first of all, you nailed it when you said organized chaos, because if you were a stranger and just walked through a kitchen when there's those 15 events going off at the same time, you would think of it as just a bunch of ants. And that's why they separate and say, garde manger, take care of your cold food and don't worry about what banquets it's doing. And pastry, you're doing the bread and the desserts, and you don't worry about what everybody else is doing. And then basically wait for your cue. And then chef's like the conductor, and he goes dun 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 dun. And when we've been there with our students during a big dish up, I always tell the students, you learn more with your eyes and your ears than you do with your mouth. Now it's not time to talk, just watch. And this food's going by, and the plates are being formed, and the chef's inspecting every one. And it's no matter how many years I've been in the food service industry, I'm always impressed when I'm in the middle of that. And I'm also proud because I know that this is people who have learned it, like Chef said, from other folks that have, taught them in the past. And it's just a great industry for anybody that's willing to work hard. And, he can teach you the skills. He can't teach you how to be a hard worker or how to have a good attitude. You have to come in with that.
So when you're there and the chefs can organize how it looks on the plate, I'm stunned because it's not just in cooking it, all right, preparing it. It's the presentation that's there, and then it's not just where the food is located, all right. It's what kind of plate is there. How's it being served? Is the waiter's thumb sticking in it in the glass of tea as he's serving? John's going, oh yeah, I know about that, right? And that's all part of it. And when we go to fine restaurants, we expect that, right? And so when we get that, it's like, this is wonderful, right? And then sometimes you put the little doodads around the side of it. That's amazing to see. You know how much to put of those extra things, so it doesn't seem to be overwhelmed.
Right.
So John, in a busy night when you were working in a restaurant, how many meals would you say that you were involved with serving or having served or prepared on a busy night? Pick your place.
It depends on the scale. In an upscale restaurant, you might, chef, in Armani's, you would do like maybe 150 covers at the most.
At the most.
But that's not a lot of people. They say covers, it means people. But in a freestanding restaurant like Draft Season, that might not be that many people. But in a 4-star, place where people are spending hundreds of dollars, they're going to be there for a while, and so you can't really turn the room so many times. So in Draft Season, he can turn the room because unless there's a game, they want to eat lunch or dinner.
So one of the things we recognize is that it's just not about eating food. It's the whole environment from the time you get into your car to you valet park it or whatever it is, to walking it. It's this whole experience for which we rent the table, if you will.
Yes.
And so when we go out and we're there a long time, we usually make sure that it's worthwhile for the restaurant owner to have us there, because I know I'm taking that space for them. And so we realize that service before, during, and after of serving the food is really important. Obviously, the way the food looks and tastes is important, but if the restaurant doesn't work, the food doesn't matter.
Right.
Great food, everything else stunk. All right.
Right.
All right. So how do you, as a chef and as owner of restaurants, for many years, how do you check in on that to see that the people that are before you or after you are doing the job they need to do?
Well, it's important to, like you say, check in, but be present when you're in the restaurant. It's if I'm inside the restaurant, I know what's going on at what table, how many people are there, what they're eating. I know the server, which server is taking care of them. I know whether the server's on the floor or in the back taking a break, or what's happening with each and every table in the restaurant. Even when it's busy and mostly packed, that's when you have to have your fingers on the pulse of the restaurant the most.
When we order food, some of the waiters don't even write it down. Is that common?
It is.
John, how do they do that? We want to know. I can barely remember somebody's phone number, much less who's at seat 4 and what they ordered. How do you train yourself to do that?
You almost can't train anybody to do that. They come in and they have good memories and they have attention to detail and they can just do it. But like Chef said, it's a team approach. His better half, Loida, is working, not only the administrative side, but front of the house side. And you've got it's real important to find key supervisors, at the bar, at the front of the house, in the back of the house. It's because, he's only one person. and he might know everything that's going on, but he has to train those key people, the key players in there, to make sure that if he walks out that door or he turns away, that they've got it. And he has to empower them to feel like, all right, I can do this. Chef's not going to yell at me for making a managerial decision. And that's what true chefs do. They train people and empower them, so that they'll never come back after 2 days off and say, what the heck went on? Because if a chef ever says that, that means they didn't train their people well enough.
And so often we think, when we think of the word chef, we think of a guy back or a lady back in the back. They're cooking some food on a higher level, but it's more than that. It's the delivery of food. It's the concept. It's the management of that team that's there. So my hat's off to you guys and do it. People want to know though, how do you handle the heat from the kitchen?
You sweat a little.
Is that right? Just a little? So,
but seriously, I mean, once you get into the orders, and the orders keep coming, and you get into like the groove, you get into knowing your it's like a dance step. You're putting something on, you're taking something off, you're putting something on a plate, you're putting it in a basket, you're putting down some fries to go with something else, and it's all comes naturally, and you just kind of get into a rhythm, and you can stay that way for a couple of hours at a time.
So one of the things we've noticed that during the pandemic, which I think for most of us it's over, I think, that lots of people have gotten a little more patient at restaurants. We realize people under stress, maybe not enough people on staff, and people have become, quite frankly, I think a lot nicer, because you're going, listen, they're short people. What do you want to do? Go to some driving if you want, but if you want to go out, have a good time, put up with the stuff that because of life's challenges, right? And give these people a break, right? So what does it look like now that the pandemic is sort of near the end as far as future employment in the industry? And John, we'll start with you.
I'm saying that business is returning faster than employees. And so restaurants and hotels and other businesses are opening back up, but the employees haven't all returned. I don't know where they've gone. They might have tried other ventures or whatever, but one of the reasons I wanted to join you guys today is to tell you that when you go into to draft season, you're not only going to get good food and great service, but you're going to leave feeling good that you just spent money at a place where the owner cares about the community. And that's very important nowadays, because you can go to any restaurant and get some food, but how are they there just to make money or make a profit or whatever? Or do they actually care about the community? Are they looking at diversity and inclusion? And so that's why I wanted to be here today, because you're sitting next to a very humble guy that wouldn't brag on himself. And so if you want some really good food by a real chef, but yet in a casual family environment, I love what you said, Chef, about food forward, family friendly. Then check out Draft Season. I've been there, and it's really casual, yet like when you brought me that pretzel and it's hanging from this thing, and the presentation is just like different than any other place. Most of the time they just throw it on a plate or on a piece of paper. But anyway, it's the employees are coming back gradually. But you know what? I'm confident that if he had nobody in his kitchen, he'd still serve 150, 200 people a day by himself.
So, and we're so glad that you're there. And we know when we walk into businesses what the owner's thinking based upon reception and how they treat staff, how they treat customers, and as they treat people that are wandering by their store. So congratulations on moving into the village of Pinecrest, is right down the street from us here in South Miami. So, and we want to thank you very, very much for being here, Chef. Listen, folks, you can check them out at all over the internet. You can find them. You can walk in the restaurant. That's 95th and South Dixie Highway. All right, terrific location. You can park downstairs or upstairs if you wanted to. Lots of places. Good time to come out. We have 20 seconds left. Is what nights are good besides every night?
Football nights.
Football nights. You can go down there.
Monday, Thursday, Sunday, Saturday.
Stretch it out over all 4 quarters. Make sure you buy stuff, each of those things. Have a friendly dinner, all right, and some beer and some pretzels and hamburgers and better. And if they want to speak to you, they can say, would you ask the chef to come out so you cook something
Absolutely.
special? John from Hands-On Education, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. And you're a great friend of the chef. Thank you for being here. And chef, thanks again. And we're going to wrap it up. Folks, have a great day. And thanks for joining us on Live with